What's happening, everybody? Trey here, joined by my dad, Sean, and today, reactions to the classics. We have a really fun top 10 list coming your way, covering the great Billy Joel.
Yep.
And this isn't just some run-of-the-mill top 10 list. This is going to be a top 10 that's going to encompass Billy's openers and closers on his record. So be looking forward to that. Start racking your brain. Well, what opened this record? What closed that record? And I want to shout out our longtime friend and patron of the channel, Joseph, for submitting this list to us. Dad, it's been a minute since we featured any Billy Joel. I did a song reaction and we did The Stranger ages ago.
Love Billy Joel. I've always been a fan of his. Don't know his catalog inside now, but appreciate Joseph putting this together. As always, he gives great write-ups. Just a smart guy and all-around good guy. I don't want him to take that too much to heart because we give each other a hard time on YouTube all the time. But before we get into that, if you want to support us in any way, the patrons make this thing go. We really appreciate it. Check out the link below. Check out our Facebook group, our Twitch, live stream every Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. So now, all that aside, Trey, let's get into this a little bit. This is from Joseph. He did a fantastic write-up, as I said earlier, like he always says. He said, there was no way I could narrow Billy's discography down to just 10 tracks. So this came to mind as a way to make life easier. The openers and closers, which I thought was pretty smart because, yeah, you're just going to pick 10. It's tough. Though even going from a starting position of 25. And then he says, how do you have 25 options from 12 albums? I hear you ask. Well, we'll get to that. Was a tough proposition as it turns out. But also a nice way to ensure an interesting mix of moderate hits. Only one of his 13 top 10 singles qualified and then didn't make the cut in the end anyway. And more obscure tracks.
And he note there's a lot of information on these tunes, of course, out there, but Joseph said he added some insights from Billy's long-term drummer, Liberty DeVito, and his autobiography there that came out last year, as well as some of Joseph's own random observations. Joseph knows, obviously, Billy needs no introduction, but in terms of the personal connection, he's probably the single most important musician in the history of me. I've loved music since before I could talk, but the day I pulled out 52nd Street to listen to while recovering from mumps at age 5, that's went to an entirely new level, and I subsequently played that album daily for months, much to my brother's delight. We also had The Stranger and Piano Man records, so they ended up in a high rotation too before long. At 6, he became the first artist I bought an album using my own money. $10.94 was needed, and it seemed to take a lifetime to save, especially at 6 years old. Man.
Yeah, exactly. Then at age 7, he became the first artist I saw live, $36, and I didn't contribute a cent to that grand total. So I did stump up the full $171 and returned with Elton 11 years later. My own music career also peaked and basically ended with my winning of a school talent quest with a medley of Piano Man and the Pink Panther theme. So while other artists may have eclipsed him in my affections over time, he remains on a pedestal for me, and my love for him has never really diminished over the years, right? With that guff out of the way, what we get on to the actual list. Well, these are listed in a rough order of personal preference, but some consideration has also been given to their effectiveness, not just as songs, but to their lofty positions in the running order. So that's kind of how we put this together. And this is just a great point we always make about music. There's nothing like music, right, to tie you to a time and place in your life. Just like Joseph says, kind of the first guy that's been important. So even though he likes other people more now, Billy's still on that pedestal. And that's why we do so much music here at RTTC, because nothing like it, man.
No, man, that's a well said, Dad. And I guess we'll get into the list now. We'll have the lyrics pulled up for all these tracks, and due to copyright and the pain that YouTube is, music will not be included in this YouTube video, but there's a link to Vimeo that y'all can check out in the description that has the whole video with the music included. But with that said, it's time to move on out. You like what I did there, Dad?
I do like what I did there. And I'm going to know more of these songs than you. I don't even know all these songs, but I'm going to know more of these than you.
Well, I obviously know this one. You can check out our the review of The Stranger, a fantastic record. And this is actually one of my favorites off it.
Yeah.
Joseph notes on this, suppose it makes sense to open with an opener. This is the very first song Billy recorded in his fruitful decade-long partnership with producer Phil Ramone. And they clearly started how they meant to go on. I can imagine diehard Billy Billy fans at the time being blown away by the leap in production quality from his earlier albums when this first landed on their turntables. Bear in mind that those diehards were few and far between at this point. The preceding album, Turnstiles, had only initially sold 50,000 copies.
This was also the album's first single, but initially was ignored, only finding success on the re-release after Just the Way You Are had provided the breakthrough. Liberty DeVito reveals the curious origins of the song in his book, stating that on the Turnstiles tour, they had little money, so they stayed in cheap motels, where on their rare off days, they would sit around the pool and entertain themselves with silly sketches, try saying that fast, with saxophonist Richie Cannata playing Billy's aunt and Liberty, his cousin, coming from the city to visit Billy in his new suburban home. Sample dialogue: "Oh, what a beautiful job you've done with the place. Did you landscape it yourself? You think this is nice? Later I'll take you in and show you my finished basement. Yep, life on the road, eh?" It was also Liberty who, not very politely, pointed out that the initial melody Billy had for the song was identical to Neil Sedaka's Laughter in the Rain, prompting a swift rewrite. Little notes that I found, Trey, I'll let you go into.
Yeah, it details the singers discussed with the upwardly mobile aspirations of working and the lower middle class New Yorkers who take pride in working those long hours to afford the outward signs of having made it.
Yep.
Billy considers their rejection of their working class roots ultimately futile. Centers around Anthony, a grocery store employee from Long Island who dreams of making it big, receiving pressure from his family to move on out and go on his way. Each verse in the song presents a blue-collar working character who tries to achieve the American dream or a true rags to riches story. However, there are such huge risks involved that our narrator questions whether the extra effort truly shows its worth. If that's what it takes to be happy, then he'll go on and find his own happiness.
And you come here for weird things, right? So here you go, weird little facts. Near the end of the recording is the sound of a car starting up and driving away. The bass player, Doug Stegmeyer's 1960s Corvette was used. According to Billy, Anthony is not a real person, but rather every Irish, Polish, and Italian kid trying to make a living in the U.S. We don't have as big of a build-up for a lot of these other songs, but we've done this album, so I already had that research done. So once again, as always, thank you, Joseph. Let's check it out.
All right, moving out, starting us off here. Obviously, Dad, we were both quite familiar with this tune, man, but it's always a joy to hear this song, man. Works has that energy that you want in an opener, and my favorite part, the
Yeah, it just has great energy, like you said, as an opener. That's what you want. Great story, like we talked about. And, you know, it fits Billy and the New York guy that he is, and the working class guy that he is. Look, man, I don't want to sell out if this is really what it means to make it. I'll just kind of hang out where I am, man, because this really isn't what it's all about. So, you know, I thought all around instrumentation's great, musicianship is great.
The saxophones in there give it a bit of a richness, and the line, "Is that all you get for your money?" That's kind of repeated throughout the song. Just
Uncle Sam's gonna get it at one point.
Uncle Sam, that's right. Who needs a house out in a Hackensack? And you know, just knowing where this fits in context, where then this goes right into the title track, "The Stranger," man. Just a heavy hitter of a record, man.
Definitely, man. Great record.
What a way to start that album out, man. So obviously enjoy that one, and I believe that's I think I only know 2 songs on here.
Yeah, I was curious what you knew on here.
So, you know, that's one of them. And next up here, coming in at number 9, we got "Keeping the Faith" from An Innocent Man in 1983.
Joseph says, our first closer of the list, and this was definitely the perfect way to end the Innocent Man album, summing up and putting a lid on, as it does the reasons for that album's nostalgic flavor. Liberty states that the song came about after rhythm guitarist Russell Javers was playing the guitar lick to Betty Wright's Clean Up Woman. Billy took the lick and wrote the song around it within a day. Pretty obvious when you listen to it, but new info to me as I'd never heard the song before reading this. Final single from the album went to 18 in the U.S., but was the only single from the album that failed to chart on the U.K. charts despite the success of An Innocent Man in the U.K. I know this song. I know the video. I was very lukewarm on An Innocent Man because it's a throwback album, tribute to 50s and 60s influence. I think I probably like it more now, but as you see in 1983, I was 12 years old when this came out. So I'm curious what I'll think of this now, and I'm really curious what you will think of it.
All right, Keeping the Faith, bringing it here at number 9. For me, man, this one took a little bit for me to kind of get with. I still don't know if I would say I liked the song. I thought the chorus was a definite strong point for me. What about you? What you think of this?
Well, it's funny, Trey, because I don't know how much I like this. As I said, this song. I was talking about the album in general, but this song in particular. But now I really enjoyed it. But you know why? Because he's probably talking, he's probably a little younger than me from the perspective he's writing this from. Remembering his younger days, he's describing everything that he did back in the day. In here referencing the 50s or early 60s, just from the things that he's referencing. But how he thought he had it all figured out and everything going on, and how the music kind of saved him. And so he's reminiscing, and I think the way it comes full circle at the end, he's going to go out and put on his 45s and drink his beer in the ice cold, so he can remember those days, because that music helped him keep the faith. So I actually really enjoyed it this time around. And when I saw it on the list, I'm not going to lie, I was like, I don't know, man. But yeah, I actually really enjoyed it. But I was wondering on a first time listen, because it is very much different than you've heard Limited Billy, but what you have heard
than what I'm expecting.
Yeah, definitely different.
And maybe that's part of it. Maybe like you said, just the perspective isn't as possibly relatable. And
right.
Yet again, I think that's a good point when you were talking about how special music is. That's one thing, a song that maybe doesn't hit you. You listen to it 5, 10, 20 years later.
Exactly. You're like, oh, okay.
Then it hits a little different. And who knows? That might be the case for me.
When I was 12, I wasn't missing my younger days so much, So.
That's true. And, here I think that richness, the soaring chorus was really, amplified. I had the saxophones, the trumpets up in here, and I think there was quite a strong vocal performance in that chorus by Billy. The verses I could kind of take or leave on first listen, but who knows, man? Maybe that'll change.
They're telling a great story, though, I will say that.
I'll keep the faith with it.
Keep the faith with it. There you go, man.
Well, now we're going to go, y'all, to River of Dreams, and it's time for famous last words right here. We're going to jump ahead to 1993.
Yeah, this is it. This is the last album, man.
Ooh, big time. Joseph said by 1990, I'd amassed almost Billy's entire discography in the space of about 4 years. So having to wait until late 93 for this album to appear under the Christmas tree, my first Billy CD, as earlier that year I'd bought our family's first ever CD player with money from the paper round. Let's go. A young Joseph out here putting in the
work, man. Getting the family the CD player.
So having to wait that long seemed like an age. I remember saying 4 years wait for only 10 new songs, a harsh lesson in being grateful for what you've got, of course, though we couldn't have known it at the time. This song wouldn't just be an excellent album closer, but effectively a career closer, as the lines, "These are the last words I have to say," became a self-fulfilling prophecy. That is interesting. I guess I had never really thought of that Billy just kind of hung them up quite early here.
Yeah, he did, although Joseph does say, though, in fairness, Billy's written at least 2 further songs with lyrics, one of which was even good, in the intervening 28 years. At the time, which happened to be around the same time as the Talent Quest win of mine, I was just thrilled to see Billy at #1 in both the singles and album charts in New Zealand. It felt like a validation, especially in an era where grunge and hip-hop, 2 genres I could never get into, were so dominant. We won't have that grunge conversation because I'll be right there with you. But it is an interesting thing, Trey, that Billy did hang it up and knew enough to hang it up. It's a discussion for another time and place, but is that the right thing to do rather than maybe churn out mediocre records? But just hang it up, sit on your catalog, and go tour. I do admire it. I think there's positives to both.
That's a good point. Famous last words. What do you think of this one, Dad?
Okay, here's the thing, right? I bought this cassette. Mm-hmm. I listened to it one time. I did not like the sound. The title track was the single video heavy rotation MTV. Now, of course, I know nowadays that's not the way you listen to an album. You listen to it over and over and give it a chance. But I much prefer Billy's sound up to An Innocent Man in '83, so the '70s up through '82. But this was pretty good. I'm not crazy about the instrumentation on it, but really good songwriting. What do you think?
No, I think knowing that this was, essentially the last thing that,
he's a master songwriter and he did it the right way.
Yeah, I like really just that kind of theme of the chorus. Like, he's given his life, essentially, and put his life and his music for so many people around the world to listen to, enjoy, and kind of glean from. And you had that organ, which was subtle enough. Organ's definitely a hit or miss instrument for me. I think it was subtle enough here that it aided the track, man. And just that whole that concept. There will be other words some other day, but that's the story of my life. And I think it just was all brought to a head, almost some imagery that's triumphant and celebratory, while also not having a melancholy sense, but just being like, this is kind of it.
Yeah, well, like that last pre-chorus there, stacked all the chairs on the tabletops, hang the sheets on the chandeliers. It slows down, but it never stops. Ain't it sweet after all these years? So yeah, he's not saying, oh man, this is tragic or sad.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to enjoy this, man.
Dude.
I'm very happy with what I put out there, as he should be. And yeah, he's just hanging it up and going, here it is.
Hey, and we got the Gone with the Wind, frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn quote up in here as well, man. But I definitely think it was a step up from Keeping the Faith for me personally. And now, Dad, we're going to venture to 52nd Street with the little Big Shot action.
Yeah, I remember the video of this, even though it was the 70s. And it's funny because Billy was very, like, I don't want to say cocky, but very confident in those days, just putting it out. And, this is nothing against anybody who's, I'm only 5'11", but Billy's only 5'5". So
Yeah.
he's out there just telling you, look, man, it doesn't matter my size. I'm telling you, I am the Big Shot. Off the 52nd Street album in 1978. What did Joseph have to say about
He
this?
said, the song that started everything for me, I don't know what I was expecting when I chose this album for a listen, but it almost certainly wasn't this. Family legend says I wasn't the only one, as my granddad had bought this for Mom for her birthday, but being curious did something he'd never normally do. Sampled it for himself before rapping it. He didn't get past this track. A shame, as honesty, which follows, may have converted him, and it permanently colored his opinion of Billy for the rest of time. But he also never test drove someone else's present ever again after that either. Obviously, I had a much more positive reaction to the recording, and Liberty notes that they were already in rehearsals for 52nd Street tour when the overdubs were being done, adding Billy wasn't happy with the guitar parts, so he brought in David Brown, who had just been hired for the tour, to see what he could do to the end of Big Shot. David is not credited on the album, but what he played in is what you hear. Only one take.
Sure, David was happy that he wasn't credited, huh? Second single went to 14 in the U.S. The song is superficially about the protagonist mocking a woman with a severe hangover for her intoxicated escapades around town, making numerous social and verbal faux pas while high on alcohol and drugs.
I'm already getting ready for this then.
But we got a few different things Billy talks about. During a Q&A session at Florida State University in 1996, Billy stated the song was about someone he was very close to and also about himself. But in an interview 10 years later in 2006, he said, I read that the song Big Shot is said to be about a date I had with Bianca Jagger. I never had a date with Bianca Jagger. But then, 4 years later on the Howard Stern show, he says the song was written after having dinner with Mick and Bianca Jagger. Joel told Stern that while writing the lyrics to Big Shot, he was thinking of Mick singing the song to Bianca. So I want that to be in your head while you listen to this. This one's a classic, Trey, just a classic.
All right, Big Shot, bringing it, man. My favorite tune on this list up to this point. Well, maybe not more than Moving Out, but I'm just so familiar with that tune. But, man, I love the swagger that Billy and the charisma that he was showing on this tune.
Yeah, I was just curious what you thought being the first time you'd ever... I love this song, man.
It was great,
it's
man.
It's peak Billy, that 4-year span that started with The Stranger when he was just absolutely unbelievable. 3 straight #1 albums, just absolutely firing all cylinders. And this is how you open up an album. This is how you're like, hey, man, I came to play, and as you said, at the swagger, even gets that voice different at the start of verse 3, and he's just telling me, you can just feel that. I don't know if I want to say anger. It's not anger. I don't know the word to use for it, but he's really ramped up, man, and he's just telling
It's almost just like he's on confidence overdrive.
Yeah,
there,
it's just so good, man. So,
I dare somebody to come up and...
and he just is laying it out in the lyrics, just everything we talked about in the beginning. He's telling her, you had that Dom Perignon in your hand and a spoon up your nose, and oh, when you wake up in the morning, your head is on fire and your eyes too bloody to see. Go and cry in your coffee, but don't come bitching to me. That's verse 1, my man.
Ooh.
He is bringing it because it had to be a big shot, didn't you?
Dude, yeah, the cadence, that was something I was going to key in on.
It
the chorus, just that melody really gets in your head.
Yeah, the way
man.
they did the instrumentation with the start and stops in there with his cadence, And
the interplay between the piano and that guitar work, and then having David's guitar work at the very end come scorching in there. It all worked, I think, at every level of a track, man, and it had a bit of that 70s pizzazz to it that I so enjoy. So that's a big hit for me right here.
Right on, man. I was hoping it would be.
I know people speak highly of that record, so I have to go give it a spin. But we'll go now, y'all, to number 6. Gonna throw it to Got to Begin Again, all the way back to your birth year, Dad, 1971.
It's a good year, man.
Cold Spring Harbor. Joseph noted, and now for something completely different. The tender and sparingly produced closer in his solo debut, best known for being originally mastered at the wrong speed, resulting in Billy sounding like he was on helium. Okay, it wasn't really that bad, but a remix and corrected version was issued in '83 and remains the only available version of the album. Interesting.
Its history aside, it's actually a far stronger album than usually given credit for, and this is one of Billy's most simple but affecting and beautiful tunes. Now, if Joseph wouldn't have told us that story, I would have thought this was mastered at the wrong speed.
Yeah,
it
that's
sounds
true.
a lot different, man. So I can imagine if it was mastered at the wrong speed, how much worse that made it, because he sure does sound different. Not bad, but just different.
Youthful, man.
Very youthful.
And here, this is, kind of your classic Billy, just him and the piano.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Some might call him a piano man.
They might.
And but there was some mature lyricists. I don't know how old Billy was at this point, but he could not have been very old.
And he's probably 22, 23, somewhere in there, I would think.
And I enjoyed the lines. I was dreaming of tomorrow, so I sacrificed today, and it was sure a grand waste of time. And despite all the truth that's been thrown in my face, I just can't get you out of my mind. And it's just that concept and theme of having to lay to rest something and start a new road.
Even though you don't want to. Nobody wants to. Even if that road was bad, nobody wants to. They're more scared to start new usually than step out of something that was bad. So really good point. So yeah, mature songwriting.
No, I was impressed with it, and it's cool in a list like this to go and travel through the years.
It is
from Famous Last Words, which is over 2 decades after this, to see how the quality stands up here.
Now we're gonna do something weird in the middle of this list, Trey. It's a 0 track, so this is not in the top 10. It's a little intermission. This is Wonder Woman from Attila in 1979. Joseph says, okay, so that was Billy in 1971 we just listened to. But if you thought that was a big contrast from Big Shot, let's step outside of this list for a moment for a piece of history that most folk have never heard, I had not, and sample what Billy was doing just a year earlier. After recording 2 albums with the Hassles, he and Hassles drummer John Small split to form this heavily amplified organ and drums duo. Their solo album is often referred to as one of the worst albums ever made, which is a gross exaggeration, but it is an experience that words alone cannot prepare you for. YouTube kindly provides you with the full thing, but I'll just force the first 3.5 minutes on you. Of course, aside from the album bombing, the duo had to split up as Joel, I never heard this either, stole Small's wife.
Oh my.
But once she was also Billy's ex, he and Small reconciled, kind of have that effect with people, with his former bandmate serving as director of many of his subsequent music and concert videos, most notably Uptown Girl, Wonder Woman, Attila. Trey, I don't really have a lot to say about that. What do you think?
Dude, yeah, Joseph was right, man. Turned up, amplified to 11, and, hearing Billy work a little, very psychedelic flavored, organ going in, man.
All in, man. You got a piano man on an organ. He's going to get after it, man.
John Small really crushing those drum fills as well. Not necessarily my favorite sound, I guess you could say, but
no,
I like that Joseph included this just to really see, because this is totally in left field.
Yeah, and this was 1970, so 3 or 4 years later, he's going to actually put out the song Piano Man, which is
right.
An insane difference. I just, it wasn't the worst thing I've ever heard.
No.
It's not good. I mean, let's say Billy took the right path. We'll put it that way. We wouldn't be talking about him today if Attila would have stuck around.
No, I think you're right. I think you're right on that one, man. But now we'll jump back into the proper list from our detour right here. And this is the other song on this list that I know. It's Miami 2017, Seen the Lights Go Out on Broadway. And Dad, a little turn, because this originally was on Turnstiles in 76, but it was also on Songs in the Attic in 81, which is a live record.
Yes, it is. Joseph said, "What to do about Turnstiles, one of Billy's finest collection of songs, but an album that he self-produced and not all that well, so that almost all of the tracks are available in vastly superior live offerings. Well, luckily this track, which originally closed Turnstiles, also happens to be the opener of his first and only essential live album, in which he re-recorded tracks from his 4 pre-Stranger albums live to great effect, so it has double legitimacy for appearing on this list. That's how he gets the 25 openers. That's why it's not 26
I like that.
and you include a till.
I like that.
The Turnstiles version actually is a decent basic track, but Billy's vocals sound like they were recorded underwater, and the songs in the Attic version just has an energy so that it can't be topped. I don't really know why he produced that album, Turnstiles. I wonder if it's just because he didn't have any money. They weren't pouring a lot of money. He was about at the end of the road.
No, and it's interesting. The re-release of Turnstiles followed Billy's return to his hometown of New York from a brief foray in Los Angeles, which resulted in the record's Piano Man and Street Life Serenade. Several of the songs are linked to this transition, including Say Goodbye to Hollywood and New York State of Mind.
By the way, both of those are excellent. Say Goodbye to Hollywood is a fantastic song.
Joel has described it as a science fiction track about an apocalypse occurring in New York as a result of discussions that the city was failing in the late 70s. Speaking at the University of Pennsylvania in 2001, Billy explained that he wrote the song while living in LA in 75 when New York City was on the verge of default. New York was bordering on a bankruptcy, and after asking the federal government for help, they were denied. This resulted in the famous headline in the New York Daily News, "Ford to City Drop Dead."
Of course, then President Gerald Ford. Joel stated that people in Los Angeles, including former New Yorkers, were deriding New York for its troubles. Billy said he thought, if New York's going to go down the tubes, I'm going to go back to New York. He explains the song depicts the apocalypse occurring in New York, the skyline tumbling down, this horrendous conflagration happening in New York City. Billy stated that the song is titled Miami 2017 because many New Yorkers retired to Miami, and the narrator is telling his grandchildren in the year 2017 about what he saw in the destruction of New York. However, this took on added significance after 9/11. Among the catastrophes that befall the city in the song is the destruction of its iconic skyscrapers. I saw the Empire State laid low. The singer recalls, I watched the mighty skyline fall. So Billy performed the song at a benefit concert on October 20th, 2001. He announced at the end of the song, I wrote that song 25 years ago. I thought it was going to be a science fiction song. I never thought it would really happen. But unlike the end of that song, we ain't going anywhere. His statement was met with applause, and they also used it in 2020. He performed for the Rise Up New York Benefit Telethon while the lights of the Empire State Building synced with the song.
Cool.
That's how you know, Trey, you wrote a classic back in 1976 when it can still be applied.
All right, Dad, Miami 2017. I think I'd only heard this song once or twice. It was requested on one of the live streams.
Yeah, that's the only time I've ever heard it.
But, man, so impressive, and I quite enjoy when the live performance records where you just hear the crowd, the energy, you almost are transported to that time.
And I'm not a huge fan of live albums because usually the singers don't sound good. The only way you knew this was a live recording was that crowd. He sounded phenomenal. The instrumentation, man. 1981 Billy was absolutely hammering it. Great song, great story, man. It's a 5-minute song, but it doesn't seem like a 5-minute song because it's so there's so many verses, so many lyrics. He's just delving it all out, man.
No, throwing a bunch of nods to New York, just stuff you associate with them. Mentioning the Yankees, shouting out Brooklyn, Broadway.
The Mafia took over Mexico. Who knew, man? That's odd line thrown in there.
That's right. Just that kind of you're blending that with the apocalyptic nature of the subject matter was a very, very cool. And Billy just came in with a fiery passion here, and then the piano coda at the end I thought was a beautiful touch to just kind of wrap this song out, man. But highly impressive, and like you said, Dad, 5 minutes that go by just like that.
It goes by quick, man.
So next we are up to number 4, ladies and gentlemen. It's time to do something I don't advise: Running on Ice, right here from The Bridge in 1986.
Yeah, and I'm a little familiar with this album, and I wasn't a big fan of the sound of it. I've actually discovered a few songs through live streams and stuff that I like off of it. Hopefully this will be one of them, Joseph. Joseph said, I received the Bridge album, then Billy's latest, for my 7th birthday, a few months ahead of attending his final concert of the accompanying tour. Yep, the one that took him to Russia, though I'm sure he'd agree the plane for me was more significant. It's generally regarded as one of his lesser efforts, but I'll have none of it. Maybe the time and place play a part in my dissenting opinion, but it's a top 3 Joel album in my book, and this is a killer opening track. Well, Joseph, you were 7 when you got this, so I get it. Similar in sound and style to Pressure, another fave of mine, but not an album opener or closer. That's a great song. but it's also often noted that it sounds a lot like something Sting might have done. Well, now you get me wondering. Well, Liberty reveals the reason for that. Sting was asked to write a song for the movie with Robin Williams called Club Paradise. Not a movie I would recommend. But he passed, so they asked Billy to write a song along the lines of something the Police would have written. In the end, the song never made it into the movie due to financial disagreements. Speaking of Liberty, some of his fills are simply insane and great fun. Can be had air drum bashing along. Have a go. You know you want to. Probably won't happen, but we appreciate the advice. And the lyrics greatly improved my vocabulary in one fell swoop, too. All right, let's see what 7-year-old Joseph and currently 107-year-old Joseph loves.
All right, Running on Ice, a song that is definitely action-packed up in here, man.
It is.
And I'm with Joseph. I think the drumming was and the fills were a musical highlight here. You know, we almost had tale of two songs, two different kind of melodies and the key changes and whatnot here. Definitely has that mid '80s sound to it.
It does. Yeah, I mean, you hit the highlights. I get a little bit of the pressure part too in there, a little bit, but I didn't mind the chorus.
Yeah.
But I guarantee you one thing, the only thing I'm sure of so far on this list, Trey, is that this will not be one of my top 3 favorite songs, and I'll just leave it at that.
No, I hear you. It's not one of my favorites either. I think I liked it a little more than you did, just because I like the story that he was telling just about the pressures of life.
It's impressive, though, that he could write it like Sting.
Oh, yeah.
And sing like that is very impressive. This is definitely a style of the Police. I will give kudos there.
No, and, he just kind of notes the urban city life and the pressures of that. In a world of high-rise ambition, most people's motives are ulterior.
You got that right.
And then that kind of goes, sometimes it feels as though I'm running on ice. What was the one line here where he noted, as soon as I get one fire put out, there's another building burning down. Impressive vocabulary here.
Hey man, Billy can write, that's for sure.
from Mr. Joel. But now, ladies and gentlemen, it is time for the top 3, and we're going to head over to Allentown right now from the Nylon Curtain in 1982. Joseph noted our final opener, its greatness speaks for itself, so not much to add here except Liberty's notes on the additional sound effects on this cut, which consist of a pile driver from an effects record and Liberty jumping up and down with 2 hard-shell percussion cases loaded with various shakers, maracas, and tambourines, which at the end of the session, when the cases were opened, were found to be smashed to dust, resulting in a hefty bill from Studio Instrument Rentals.
At least he broke them all doing something musically instead of just destructive. Upon its release, and especially in subsequent years, Allentown emerged as an anthem of blue-collar America, representing both the aspirations and frustrations of America's working class in the late 20th century. Reached only 17 on the Billboard Hot 100s, but I found this interesting. It spent 6 consecutive weeks at that position, went gold, and despite it placing no higher than 17, it was popular enough to be placed at 43 on the year-end chart of 1983. Shows you how long it hung around. Its theme is of the resolve of those coping with the decline of the American manufacturing industry and the emergence of the Rust Belt in the latter part of the 20th century. More specifically, it depicts the depressed blue-collar livelihood of residents of Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, in the wake of Bethlehem's decline and eventual closure. I found this interesting. When Billy started writing the song, it was titled Levite Town, after the Long Island town next to Hicksville, where Joel grew up. He had originally written a chord progression and lyrics for the song, but struggled for a topic for the song. He remembered reading about the decline of the steel industry in the Lehigh Valley, which includes the cities of both Bethlehem and Allentown. The steel industry was based in Bethlehem with none of it in Allentown. But he titled Allentown because he said it sounded better and was easier to find rhymes for. He started writing in the late 70s. It was not finished until 82. I did find that Allentown wasn't too happy about this at first, but then they ended up saying, okay. It's a great video. It's a black and white video. And I'll tell you, Trey, that an 11-year-old Sean had this 45 and played it to death. This is a fantastic song. At least it was in 82. We'll find out now.
Industrial-like noises.
Definitely.
Kind of book-ending, the sound effects up in here. And it's Allentown. Did it hold up for you?
I want to see what you think of this before.
Oh, no,
because I know this song so well. I was curious to what
No,
you would think.
I honestly dug it. I thought that this is, it showed Billy at, some of his best and most comfortable. Just him, really, the instrumentation was obviously piano driven. I thought the piano melody itself was quite catchy, and it has a timeless subject matter. Even if you're not familiar, it's not like I'm familiar with the Pennsylvania area, but
Right.
I think the fact that he was able to kind of push into, we graduated. They said we were gonna do this and do that, and be well off with that, and but they never really helped us at all. No, they never taught us what was real. Iron and coke, chromium, steel. Just that Billy songwriting touch that is done so well, and yet it's still kind of put in that pop. Package to make it catchy for the masses.
Yeah, for me, like the lyrics are fantastic, and even the way at the end of 3 of the verses he holds the note.
Yeah,
like everything
voice sounded fantastic.
Everything was just done so well. The sound effects of building that industrial between verses and choruses. I think this is just a perfectly put together song, and still really, really enjoyed it, man. It's a great choice to have at number 3.
And every child has a pretty good shot to get at least as far as their old man God. I don't know if I can get as far as you, Dad.
Oh, my man, you will surpass that. That's no problem. But something happened on the way to that place. They threw an American flag in his face. That was very powerful, man.
Yeah, dude. Some of my favorite lyrics on this list. So great choice right there, Joseph. And hey, the list is still young, and the night is still young, ladies and gentlemen.
It's only 5:40 p.m. at the time of us filming this.
And this is a bit unique here because this is off of Greatest Hits Volume 1 and 2 from 85. Joseph said, you'll recall, I asked, how can you have 25 bookend tracks from 12 albums?
Oh, well, here's the answer. I thought I found the answer with Attila.
Add a new track or two to the end of your Greatest Hits set. Oh, that's interesting, man. That's interesting. This was the very album a 6-year-old me purchased for himself after months of extra chores and scrounging of pavements for lost coins. I respect 6-year-old Joseph.
I gotta have the Billy Joel album. Where's it at? Give me a penny, please, sir.
Never mind that we already own 9 of the 11 songs on the first volume.
Not the same, man. You gotta have them all together.
Or that there were several very obvious radio edits. It was a double album of Billy, and it was all mine, and I played it to death. Some have said that the only weakness of the set was the inclusion of those 2 new misses, but actually they did both become hits, with You're Only Human going top 10. This, however, was only a minor top 40 entry, so despite closing one of the biggest selling albums in history, it often feels like nobody else even knows it. But I've always loved it, even if I appreciate the lyrics somewhat more these days than when I did when I first bought it.
And I will say, I own this album, and I own the cassette, and I played this cassette to death, but I don't remember this song.
Ooh,
so maybe I never got that far, because I was a little more choosy. I would put it in my Alpine stereo and my Monte Carlo, and I would go, man. So a little throwback to yesteryear. So I don't know. We'll see if I remember it.
Hitting the fade out on The Night Is Still Young. I'll let you tee this one off, Dad.
Pretty interesting, especially in the first few verses where somebody's singing with him, right? There's some sort of backing, but it doesn't have it in the official credits.
Or so maybe that's just a layered.
That's what I was. Or it's him and it's a layer. So it has a different sort of delivery, which takes a little bit to get used to, but it works because then it builds up into this anthemic chorus and then dials you back. So I really liked it. He's just telling the story. It's a love story. Telling, I like how it starts out. I'm young enough to see the passionate boy that I used to be, but I'm old enough to say I got a good look at the other side. I know we got to work real hard, maybe even for the rest of our lives, but right now I just want to take what I can get tonight. I'd like to get married, have a child someday, but I see a time coming when I'm going to throw my suitcase out. No more separations where you have to say goodnight to a telephone. Baby, I've decided that ain't what this life is all about. So he's realizing things as he's maturing. He goes from, basically I just want to enjoy this night to, okay, now, I want to get married and do that stuff. But well, the night is still young, Trey. He wants to take care of that business.
I want to keep making love to you. And especially the first couple times those choruses hit, they were, really coming in quite lush, with the, whatever the backing vocals were. That was kind of the highlight of the tune for me,
too,
man. And, just had a bit of that epic atmosphere and nature to it. I can see this one being a fantastic one, kind of in the middle of the set list in a live concert
I can
or whatever.
Too. Yeah, it's a nice one, man, for sure.
Get the people going in a sense, but I just thought it was a really well done by Mr. Billy Joel here. And now, ladies and gentlemen, the moment you've all been waiting for. It is time for number 1 on this list. What did Joseph cook up for us? from the Piano Man record. It is Captain Jack.
Yeah, and long before Johnny Depp addressed this issue, William Joel had it on lockdown off the Piano Man 1973 album, as you said, Trey. Joseph says, as with Miami 2017, this appears in a superior version on Songs in the Attic, but this time we're going to stick with the original here, which is great anyway. Not least because it features Billy's original touring drummer. I have thought about this in like 20 different ways, how to say this name. I've seen it said different ways. I've seen it say Reese. I don't know. It's Ryhs. What do you think, Trey?
Dude, I'm glad you were reading it and not me.
I'm going to go with Rise, but it could be Reese Clark. Ron Tutt was on drums for the other 19 tunes produced by Michael Stewart on the Piano Man and Street Life Serenade albums. I guess I'll call him Mr. Clark. May have been allowed in the studio due to his contribution to the 1972 live version that Billy got so much attention in Philadelphia. I didn't even know Mr. Clark's name, let alone his origins, prior to the Legacy edition of the Piano Man, which may have been just as well. Not sure I could have coped at a young age with the knowledge that a Kiwi could achieve anything in life. Yes, including being Billy Joel's drummer. I think my little head may have exploded. We would not have wanted that. Now, I mentioned under Running on Ice that Billy's lyrics improved my vocabulary. My mom was always keen to get me to check the dictionary for words I didn't know. That's a good parent right there. There's one obvious exception featured in this track where she managed to prevent me ever looking up by telling me it just meant lazing around the house doing nothing. Now you're good Christian folks, so answer me this. Is it wrong to lie or not? I can't wait to see this line. I've only heard this song a couple times in my life.
No, yeah, and I know it's a very, famous track. I don't know if I've heard it or not, but
we did it on a live stream, but you may not have been in there.
Oh, yeah, that's
true.
You
may not have been in there.
It's true. It's considered by some to be the most important and pivotal of his early compositions because his performance of the song at an April 72 live radio concert at Sigma Studios in Philadelphia, what Joseph was alluding to, and the subsequent airplay this live version received on the station brought him to the attention of major record labels, including the big Columbia, with whom he would sign in 1973. He wrote this in late 71 while sitting in his apartment in Oyster Bay, Long Island, looking out the window, trying to find inspiration for a song. Across the street was a housing project, and he observed suburban teenagers going into it and obtaining heroin from a dealer known as Captain Jack.
There you go.
I didn't expect the story to turn in that. It's about coming out of the New York suburbs, Joel said in 1974. But in my travels, I have seen a lot of the same suburb all over the country. The song is sort of brutal, but sometimes it is good to be brutal and offend people. It keeps them on their toes. And Joel noted it is an anti-drug song. He says, I've been accused of, this song promotes drug use. No. Listen to the song. This guy is a loser. In writing about the song in the liner notes of his Songs in the Attic album, Joel once again emphasized the point. So many friends shoveled under the Long Island dirt. The miracle of modern chemistry killed them in Vietnam.
And adding to the live concert, Captain Jack was immediately embraced by that radio station, WMMR's audience. For the next year and a half, they kept this live version in their regular rotation, which I got to tell you, Trey, being a guy that grew up on radio, that's insane to me.
That's impressive, yeah.
Listeners called in, wanted to know where they could find the song and on what album it appeared. It was such a big hit in Philly that several New York radio stations got their own tape copies of this and began to play it as well. Though Columbia's then president, the famous Clive Davis, first noticed Joel at the Mary Saul Festival in Puerto Rico on Easter Sunday in April of 72. The constant airplay of this unreleased song kept the label's attention. They did their best. They had to track him down after turning down a deal from Atlantic Records, which is really ballsy back in the day.
Yeah.
Because they were huge, too. He signed with Columbia in the spring of 73. I just had all the research because this song is so pivotal and most people don't know that. And the fact that other radio stations are trying to get copies of this, I mean, that's crazy back in the day.
Unbelievable story.
So buckle up, boys and girls. It's 7:17.
Wow, what a way to end this list.
Man.
Captain Jack, which for me is, there's been a lot of great songs on this list, but this takes the cake. I think, Joseph, you chose right on your number one right here, man.
For sure, totally agree. What an epic story, man.
It really, really is. And I enjoy the musical shift in this song where, we start out quite quiet and subdued, and then that chorus is just soaring and epic. Captain Jack will get you high tonight.
Well, it's interesting. The first few times he delivers the chorus, if you notice, he doesn't change the level of his voice too
That's
much.
true.
It's the guitar and drum that just ramp that thing up. Then later on he gets into it more, but it's a nice musical technique. Like, I'm going to sing like this, but that guitar takes it up to this like soaring, like you said, just let's go, and then he really gets into it later on. But just a fantastic story of what we talked about in the start. You know, they're doing the heroin and just following this guy who, as Billy said, is a loser. One of the things that's interesting I found in the research for this, I didn't share it at the start there of the song, but Billy said, you know, this is probably, I don't know, mid-'80s. He did an interview, and then he did an interview like 15 years later and kind of said the same thing, that this song was huge for him in his development and getting the record deal, but that he said when you really look at it, it's kind of depressing, and it kind of makes me depressed when I sing about it. So he stopped singing it in concert for years, because he's like, it just kind of brings me down when I sing it, but it's so good.
Well, that's what I was going to bring up. It's not like this has a happy ending to it. I mean, the dad dies in the swimming pool.
And he got out of it. Now, he even got out of it. I guess I'm not going back to school anymore because he can drop out because his dad won't keep him in school, or that he's got to go to work because there's no one else to provide. But either way, it just keeps getting worse for this guy.
No, man, and you know, all he does is lounge around, listen to his records, wait for his girl. You know, the guy is just waiting then for that next high from Captain Jack right here, and I think how just in your face it was. You know, it's not necessarily what you expect from Billy here, but
man, can you imagine that on this album he has this and Piano Man, and then he doesn't have success for like another 5 years though. That's crazy. He almost ends up not getting another record deal.
No, the music business is just wild that way, and it's just so you know, interesting. Like, what if that had never gone over in Philadelphia? You know, would we even know Billy Joel?
That's a very good point.
But man, fantastic, and that'll transition us nicely into favorite tracks. Obviously, Captain Jack's going to be up there for me. I'm going to show some love to Big Shot.
I thought you might.
Of course, Moving Out. Miami 2017, just the live version of that was great, and even The Night Is Still Young, which was number 2 on the list here. I thought that was quite well done. What about you, Dan?
I'm going to take Captain Jack. The Night Is Still Young, which I didn't remember in Miami 2017 because obviously I already loved Allentown, Big Shot, and Moving Out, so I'm going to pick 3 different ones on there, but a really, really good list. And, you know, I'm going to say something controversial. I realize he's not as epic. I realize he's not important, as important musically.
I think I know what you're going to say.
But when it comes to my piano rockers, I actually prefer Mr. William Joel over Mr. Reginald Dwight.
I thought that's where you were going.
I mean, that's just me. I realize in the history of rock, he's not as important. But I'm just saying personal preference.
Yeah.
I'll take Mr. Joel.
No, man, I like that, and this was a fun list too. To just see all the different eras of Billy here. Man. And Joseph, you did a fantastic job, man. So be sure to give Joseph some love in the comments for having us do this list. Let us know your favorites from this list and what maybe didn't make the cut from Billy's openers and closers.
Yeah, remember it's openers and closers. Don't be pulling all these big hits out. I can't believe this wasn't on there because it's openers and closers.
But as always, Dad, this was a blast to do. Appreciate all the research, and until next time, y'all, thanks so much for watching. Happy listening, and we will see ya.